My name is Andrew McManamon, and this is my Porphyria story.
How do you describe porphyria to people?
I describe porphyria in the simplest way possible. I tell people it's a rare genetic disorder that is characterized by an enzyme deficiency that carries oxygen in the blood. So I go to the hospital and I get what I'm deficient in so I can go about my day. So that's my quick version, but when someone truly wants to hear the depth to it all, I tell them there's several triggers to a porphyria attack, such as drugs, alcohol, fasting, dieting, keto is a no-no, stress, infections, or certain hormonal factors or changes, and then I'll jump into the symptoms of vomiting, constipation, pain in the back, arms and legs, muscle weakness, palpitations, confusion, hallucinations, seizures, and insomnia. And if people seek more interest into this rare disorder, I have them hop on the porphyriafoundation.org to really break down what acute intermittent porphyria truly is. I try not to make it too complicated because it's really easy to lose someone in the fancy medical verbiage of it all.
When was your first porphyria attack?
It all started in 2018 when I was about 20 years old or so. I was on vacation up north at my family's property, and it was a vacation we took every year since I was a kid. We ride dirt bikes, four-wheelers, grill good meats, have daily bonfires, and just live off the grid for like 7 days. Unfortunately, the relaxation of that trip didn't last very long when I started to feel the worst abdominal pain I've ever felt in my whole entire life. And it was like someone was just dragging a knife down and around my abdomen. It was associated with constipation and the constant urge to vomit because my nausea was just really that bad. I couldn't keep anything down, and all I did was pace the woods back and forth until I needed to throw up or sit in a curled up fetal position hoping it would just stop. I thought maybe my diet was a little thrown off with camping food and I was just having food poisoning or something. After a full day of abdominal pain, constipation, the urge to vomit, sleeplessness, and really just extreme discomfort, I was admitted into a local hospital up north. So immediately I was put on saline fluids and morphine to fight off all this pain. That same day I was released and told my symptoms would eventually just clear up, and it was all in my head because no test showed anything was wrong with me. But it never cleared up. I was back in the same hospital a day or so later where I'd be given laxative medications to help kickstart my digestive system. There wasn't really the slightest bit of luck with that at all. And after being released again, it was our last day on vacation where we would pack up and then go home. The morning after coming back from my vacation, I actually decided to make an appointment with my general physician to have my blood and urine test done along with an x-ray of my bowel and overall digestive system. And my doctor said it would take a few days to get results, and barely pulling into the driveway at home after that, the doctor called and said I needed to be admitted to the ER immediately because it appeared I had a small bowel obstruction. So this doctor is someone I never had a chance to really truly thank, because during our visit that morning, he brought up a porphyria theory, which saved me endless years of being a test subject and bouncing around from doctor to doctor. I arrived at the hospital where I was hooked up to saline fluids and received morphine for my pain. The surgeon ended up coming into my room and informed me that I have an ileus, or a bowel obstruction, and it was decided that I needed a nasogastric intubation, or NG tube, if I pronounce that right, which is a long tube they put down your nose into your stomach to pull essentially everything out to restart my digestive system. So after 4 days or so, I was discharged, but my fatigue was just really just unbearable. It was like the worst weakness I ever felt in my life, because I lost like 25 pounds. My body was frail and the weakest it really has ever been, like I said. But after months and months of recovery, it wouldn't be until November 2019 when I'd have my second attack.
Was your second attack handled any better?
Was my second attack handled any better? Yes and no. This time I knew what I had. After a full year of research, appointments with hematologists, gastrointestinal specialists, surgeons, and countless blood and urine tests, this unimaginable abdominal pain and fatigue was an acute intermittent porphyria attack, AIP. I honestly just I felt alone, knowing more than most nurses, doctors, and dietitians that would step foot in my room the whole entire stay. So I told the doctors I needed panhematin to resolve this attack. Its active ingredient is heme, which is a molecule that carries oxygen in the blood. And since porphyria is an enzyme deficiency, it helps normalize the rate of heme production and gets porphyria patients through their attacks. But the doctors insisted on another NG tube, which I refused because it was just a complete nightmare last time, them trying to do it, and it was a disaster. After hours of searching suppliers and other hospitals, they were able to give me finally what I needed: 4 doses of panhematin in 4 days. Little did I know this medication wasn't supposed to be administered through a typical IV due to the thickness and really just the potency of it all, and just the vein irritation it's known for. It caused deep vein blood clots that caused excruciating burning pain, swelling, redness, and I even got a fever from it too. I had to stay 3 extra days in the hospital to get an arm ultrasound and be monitored while I was put on blood thinners. I was eventually discharged. And then during the 3rd attack in 2020, we thought we could just alternate arm veins for each dose, and I ended up getting blood clots in each arm and having to be put on blood thinners once again. It wasn't until 2021 where I realized and utilized the PICC line that was put into just this larger vein in the heart, where then I would just avoid the blood clot altogether. So,
how were your more recent attacks handled? And have you experienced anything different than usual during your attacks?
At this point, you'd assume it would be a well-oiled machine with a medical staff tackling this with thoroughness, but unfortunately, it really wasn't the case. I ended up switching to another hospital because I was told there was a specialist with a lot of knowledge pertaining to porphyria, but then he resigned, passed the baton to an apprentice who moved to another hospital out of state, and I was pushed off to someone else who was supposedly specialized in it, but they ended up being a general hematologist. So I made the decision to go back to my original medical staff for the next coming attacks. It's exhausting, really, lonely, and just overly sad that we grow up with this mentality that we can learn and lean on medical professionals to make us better. But the reality is, in this particular situation, in my particular situation, I knew more than they did. Of course, it's not their fault, but it doesn't exactly make me feel any better. So the last couple attacks were triggered by infection, which was COVID. I got it twice in 2 years, so I was admitted into the COVID unit, and I wouldn't be able to see anyone for like 7+ days. And I also couldn't get up and do laps around the halls like I would normally try and do to kickstart my digestive system and just honestly pass the time, because it seemed like time moved so slow. So I started just walking in circles in my room. I would just take 3 to 5 steps and then turn around and keep going until I didn't have the energy to take another step, which honestly didn't take very long. I'd time myself to see if there would be any improvement on it, but I think it was more so just to make the time go by faster at the end of the day. So I couldn't sleep. I couldn't go to the bathroom. It was day 5 or 6 of not eating or drinking anything. My body was becoming more and more frail, not only from what porphyria was putting me through, but COVID as well. Watching reruns of Friends episodes gave me zero satisfaction whatsoever on the hospital TV. I held the nurses accountable for getting me my pain medication every couple hours, even though I knew it was horrible for me. It slows your digestive system down, which is the opposite of what we wanted to achieve here. I just kept saying yes because I wanted to feel good for a little bit, honestly. I just kept saying yes. I didn't really care how long it took. With the sleeplessness and the constant shooting pain, I really wanted to lay back and imagine a better life, a better situation, whether it was being home and being lazy with my partner in crime or reliving some of the best memories of my life. It quickly switched off, and I found myself hallucinating about people in my room telling me I had to do this impossible task in order to have the ability to fall asleep. I laid there just stuck in my mind, in my head for days and days and days. My mental and physical health were just running on zero, honestly, and I was counting down the seconds until I could be home again. The first attack was the worst for me physically, but the attack in 2021 just completely annihilated my mental health, and I feel like I haven't fully recovered from that yet.
With that in mind, how do you live with porphyria?
Well, would I consider myself as someone with a normal life? Not so much. But I try to make the most of it the best I can. I do my best to follow the Porphyria safe drug list for medications so they don't spiral me into another attack. I make sure that my diet is as healthy as possible while eating and drinking a carb source every 2 to 4 hours. And I always make it a point to stay up to date on what the American Porphyria Foundation is up to, whether it's releasing new research articles that could affect my day-to-day routines based on their findings. And I make sure I exercise frequently without overdoing it, and always try to really listen to my body and not compare my capabilities to anyone else's if it comes down to it.
How has porphyria impacted your life?
Porphyria has impacted my life on so many levels. It feels like a lonely road, not just in the hospital where it feels like no one can truly relate to what you're going through, but also during non-attack periods too, where everyone thinks everything is fine. I feel like I have spent my whole life healthy, able, and in a family where there wasn't an alarming history that was going to catch up to me in the medical department. But it would appear I created a new piece of medical history that will affect my family for generations to come. I'm fortunate to not have attacks as frequently as others, but there's no saying really what this will progress into, if at all. There's often this misconception that porphyria is only affecting someone when they're having an attack, and in my opinion, I feel like that couldn't be any farther from the truth. And I looked at a few studies, and they just showed no matter the frequency of attack, as long as they were recurrent, there are effects during non-attack periods that are mostly related to things like depression, anxiety, and other psychiatric manifestations. And as these years go on, attacks continue to add up. I have found myself in a depressive and anxious state of mind, which never was really present in my life until these attacks started happening, honestly. Wondering when this disease is going to kill me, why me, the hardship this puts my family and partner through. Does anyone else in my family have this terrible disease? Will this terrible disease progress in my years to come, and will I make it out of the hospital the next time I have an attack? I mean, it's just all these thoughts spiral in my mind on a daily basis, keeping me up at night, making me hide away from the world some days because I don't really want to bring this negativity into a conversation, because in my opinion, negativity is contagious. I'm not a very negative person, but my mentality has shifted over the years, and I think porphyria has been a proponent of that, or at least I let it be. In my mind, I know I'm going to die from this disorder. It's just a matter of when. And I know that's not exactly a breath of fresh air, because the probability may not even be there at all. But I have read the member stories on the foundation website of people who have progressed into losing their motor skills, having daily seizures, lucky to have walked down to the mail that day, and the stories just go on and on. So just like anyone would with the same disorder as these individuals, I have let these outcomes just consume me entirely. But it's something that I am working to get better at every day. It's something that I've just neglected to work on for several years. So
what advice do you have for someone with porphyria, or someone who is trying to comfort a loved one who has it?
So porphyria is a lifelong struggle for patients, parents, guardians, friends, and spouses. As much as we'd like to pretend it's not part of our lives, we can't, because there's numerous triggers we have to be aware of, from diet, nutrition, to exercise and sleep. It doesn't matter if you have an attack once a year or 2 to 3 a month. It's important to take care of yourself and continuously be learning about what you should and shouldn't do. And make sure you're becoming aware of the resources out there available to you, from the American Porphyria Foundation website to the Facebook groups, where I myself have talked to several people like me who battle this every single day to gain a better perspective. I know I know balance is hard in every aspect of life, but you just can't let this consume your life. You just can't, despite how much time porphyria will take you away from it. As I mentioned at the end of my last point, it's easy to be negative about this and let it swallow you whole. I mean, I've let it swallow me whole. It takes some time to bounce out of that, and I'm still trying to bounce out of that. And I feel even after several years since my first attack, I still let the negativity of these attacks affect me on a daily basis. And that's something that I've never really admitted to anyone to that magnitude anyway. It's hard to express, really, and to break down the feelings and actually voice how you want others around you to react, because as I said, negativity is just contagious, and that's what goes on in my head. I sometimes feel like I haven't fully accepted the weight of this disorder, and part of me is in denial, but like I said, it takes time, I guess. Nobody is perfect, and life is all about progress, no matter how big or little the step is. And with that in mind, just getting a support system around you and realize you're not alone even when it feels like it. Talk with friends and family. Consider even talking with a therapist to have some unbiased conversations to expand your perspective as well. I can admit I'm very stubborn in this aspect of talking more openly about it, and that's one of the reasons I kind of decided to force myself to do this video after really neglecting it for several years, because at the end of the day, it's really, as much as this video is about me, it's not about me. It's all about the people out there who went through and are going through the same situations and hardships as me, to try and find some answers. So if making this video and becoming a little vulnerable is all I have to do to help just one person, I'm really happy to do it. If you or someone you know has porphyria and want to talk to someone who has it as well, my door is always open, and you can reach out to me on social media whenever you want about whatever you want. I just want to be a resource for those in need, and I just really hope this video helped you as much as it did me.
How do you want your friends and your family to treat you or to deal with your porphyria?
It's a good question, but I think pretending like everything's fine is probably the way I want to go about it.